Every superhero has a lieutenant, a second-in-command, a friend, a helper. Batman and Robin, Captain America and Iron Man, Ant-Man and Wasp, Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Well, you get the gist of it. Well, in finance, the most famous dynamic duo is the one composed of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Now, we'll soon have a new video on Warren Buffett, but let's start with focusing on Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger was born on the 1st of January 1924 in Omaha, Nebraska. His life had some early connections to Warren Buffett, who is his best friend and very successful business partner, since back then he worked at Buffett & Son, the grocery supplier owned by Warren Buffett's granddad. Now, Charlie Munger himself was the grandchild of a district court judge and state representative. And once he got a little older, Charlie went to the University of Michigan to study mathematics, but dropped out of college to join the US Army Air Corps, where he rose to become second lieutenant. Now, the Army asked Charlie Munger to go study meteorology at CalTech in Pasadena, California, and that's where he eventually settled down for the rest of his life. Charlie mentioned that in college and the US Army, he learned the important skill of playing cards, which taught him when to quit and how to spot opportunities and take advantage of them. Now, although he never got his college degree, Charlie Munger applied to his father's alma mater, the highly revered and prestigious Harvard Law School, one of the top institutions for legal studies in the US. Now, that got a little tricky because, yes, as many of you attentive followers noticed, Charlie had not completed his college degree. How can you go to law school, and even more to Harvard Law School, if you don't even have a college degree? Well, that's what happened, and the admissions department rejected Charlie's application for that precise reason. However, Charlie made some moves and used some family connections to have this decision overturned. His family had a friendly relationship with Roscoe Pound, who then was the former dean of Harvard Law School. Now, notwithstanding getting in was challenging, Charlie did actually very well in law school and graduated magna cum laude. So after Harvard Law School, Charlie started practicing law, including at the firm he founded that still exists today called Munger, Tolles & Olson LLP. He then moved on and started managing in the space of real estate investments, with Otis Booth first and then Jack Wheeler later. His newest venture with Wheeler didn't end up working out and they had to shut it down. Charlie famously created mental models and structures to address and help think through complex problems. And these resulted in some very witty quotes, or elementary worldly wisdom as Charlie himself describes them. Many of his quotes and frameworks apply to most aspects of life, including the importance of ethical behaviour and honesty in life and in business. His quotes are so numerous and frankly so good that they've all been compiled into a very instructive book called Poor Charlie's Almanac. Now, our friend Charlie is smart, he's opinionated and in some cases pretty controversial. And I'll read out a number of these because Charlie Munger has a unique way to state these punchlines and make these principles pretty memorable. And at the end of this video, we'll have quoted some of them for you. And do let us know in the comments below which one your favourite is. Now, down to his personal life, Charlie got married to Nancy Huggins whilst he was studying at CalTech. And she was a roommate of his sister. They had 3 kids together, 2 of which became lawyers, and one of which sadly died of leukemia at the age of 9. Nancy Huggins herself died from cancer at 76. But Charlie divorced Nancy and married Nancy Barry and had 4 children from that marriage. And if you see Charlie's pictures and videos, you may actually notice that he's had eye surgery that made him blind on the left side. And he had a similar problem on the other eye, which made him want to learn the Braille alphabet. But fortunately, things seem to have improved since. And his eyes may be weakening, but his mind stays razor sharp. It's very sad to hear how time is taking its toll on Charlie. But to some extent, it's nice to see that even the richest and most successful people in the world have issues just like you and me. Nobody cheers for other people's bad luck, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to see that we all have to deal with similar problems, billionaires and regular fellows like me. Charlie, just like his great friend Warren Buffett, has donated lots and lots and lots of money to charity. $110 million to the University of Michigan, $65 million to the Kavli Institute for Theoretical Physics at the University of California, $200 million to UC Santa Barbara to provide for student housing. And Charlie has recently warned that the market recovery after the COVID-19 crisis has been, quote, unbelievable, and that a lot of smart people think that they are smarter than they actually are. Now, I think we'll have Warren Buffett close on Charlie Munger with one of his many quotes on his best friend and partner. And he said, There are not too many people I listen to, but Charlie, he's given me a lot of good advice over time, and I may hate to take it to a certain degree, but my decisions have been better. I've lived a better life because of Charlie Munger. What a legend, and that's why we think of him as the wisest man on Wall Street. So that's it for now, folks. We'll leave you with some of the best quotes by Charlie Munger. But first, one thing I really want to ask you is to like this video if you enjoyed it, and do please subscribe to the channel and leave some comments below. And we'll see you soon, guys. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. Bitcoin is worthless, artificial gold. Bitcoins remind me of Oscar Wilde's definition of fox hunting, the pursuit of the uneatable by the unspeakable. Generally speaking, envy, resentment, revenge and self-pity are disastrous modes of thoughts. Self-pity gets fairly close to paranoia, and paranoia is one of the very hardest things to reverse. You don't want to drift into self-pity. Self-pity will not improve the situation. I constantly see people rise in life who are not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. And boy, does that help, particularly when you have a long run ahead of you. There's danger in just shoveling out money to people who say, my life is a little harder than it used to be. At a certain place, you've got to say to the people, suck it in and cope, buddy. Suck it in and cope. Confucius said that real knowledge is knowing the extent of one's ignorance. Aristotle and Socrates said the same thing. Now, is it a skill that can be taught or learned? It probably can, if you have enough of a stake riding on the outcome. Some people are extraordinarily good at knowing the limits of their knowledge because they have to be. Think of somebody who's been a professional tightrope walker for 20 years and has survived. He couldn't survive as a tightrope walker for 20 years unless he knows exactly what he knows and what he doesn't know. He's worked so hard at it because he knows if he gets it wrong, he won't survive. The survivors know. Knowing what you don't know is more useful than being brilliant. If you're unreliable, it doesn't matter what your virtues are. You're going to crater immediately. Doing what you have faithfully engaged to do should be an automatic part of your conduct. You want to avoid sloth and unreliability. I've seen so much folly and stupidity on the part of our major philanthropic groups, including the World Bank. I really have more confidence in building up the more capitalistic ventures like Costco. One of the greatest ways to avoid trouble is to keep it simple. When you make it vastly complicated, and only a few high priests in each department can pretend to understand it, what you're going to find all too often is that those high priests don't really understand it at all. The system often goes out of control. 99% of the troubles that threaten our civilization come from too optimistic accounting. And yet these damn accountants, with their desire for mathematical purity, want to devote exactly as much attention to accounting that is too pessimistic as they do to accounting that is too optimistic, which is crazy. 99% of the problems come from being too optimistic. Therefore, we should have a system where the accounting is way more conservative. One of my personal favourites, short, witty and 100% on point. The liabilities are always 100% good. It's the assets you have to worry about. No man is fit to hold office who isn't perfectly willing to leave it at any time. I think that ought to be more the test in corporate directorships. Is a man really fit to make tough calls who isn't willing to leave the office at any time? My answer is no. Like Warren, I had a considerable passion to get rich. Not because I wanted Ferraris. I wanted the independence. I desperately wanted it.